that seems more hypocritical to me.
Well, because
you know?
I'm not saying that it's necessarily efficacious right now for us to engage in violence. My question is specifically with regard to, do we also reject the violence of people defending themselves from U.S. imperialists while we ourselves are living in the United States and benefiting?
Yeah, and my answer to that is, we are all more, everyone in this room, I believe, is, our lives are problematized by living in the United States. And I think there are reasons to do it, and I think there are reasons not to do it. There are compelling arguments about leaving, and there are compelling arguments to staying. And in short, I think if a person thinks that by living here, they may affect some change here that would justify their being here, then I'm okay with that. And for example, I see myself that way. If someone just lives here and reaps the benefits of living here, but does not in any way or any significant way try to address the evils of American imperialism, then I think that person is morally suspect and has a problem they need to face up to. So, I mean, that's what I think.
Sure, but I'm curious as to what you actually think of the people who are actually engaged in violence.
Well, the people who are engaged in violence there are people all over the world, in the United States and outside the United States, who are engaged in violence in two respects. One is, it seems to them the very best moral option they have. And two, they are in such circumstances that they, I don't think it's reasonable to expect that they would act differently, or at least you could understand quite deeply and sympathetically why they are engaged in the violence in which they're engaged. So they deserve from me a kind of sympathetic understanding and a kind of solidarity. Not the solidarity of their violence, not that I think the right thing to do is join them in their violence, but I can join them in their cause in nonviolent ways. So they deserve solidarity from me. Okay. This should be the last, because my ride home has been walking out there wondering when I'm going to leave. So. Anyway.
Probably do it. That's okay. That was basically mostly, there's a little bit more, but that's basically my question. So.
I have a question if nobody's bold enough to take the last one.
Okay.
It seems to me like there's this sort of tentative distance or something like that to these secular reasonings around nonviolence. I'm wondering if that centrals around the idea that, or that sort of distancing comes around from the idea of radical transformation of humanity, and that's why you believe it's more efficacious to believe in on theological grounds that nonviolence is something that we can definitely achieve and should achieve. You understand my question?
Yeah, by the way, I don't believe that all teleologies have the same efficacy or the same value, and so I think some teleologies are quite harmful and non-efficacious. You could be a Buddhist, for example, who just thinks, well, Buddhism is a good way to talk about teleology, but you could think something like, well, the world's just going to end up the way it's going to end up, because that's the way it's going to end up, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it, so screw it, right? And you'd have a kind of teleology, but it wouldn't help anybody, right? But if you think that there is something like the great inner universe, to go back to that metaphor, and you are working with it, and you are kind of pushing, and Marx thought this, for example, right? That you're kind of pushing things along the way that they're going to go. Martin Luther King fought this. You know, that things are going that way.
Second part's right.
That's the way they're going to go, and I'm helping them along. You know, there's something that's inevitable about this. You know, and not that we aren't crucial aspects of it, but you know, we're on the winning side of history here. You know, that's the way it's going to end up. So I might as well be on the winning side, right? All Marxists think that. Well, of course, right? Just
No, not even a little bit. Good
a
Marxists.
lot, right?
Good Marxists don't. Vulgar Marxists do.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
I wasn't very clear with my
I'm
question.
not saying there's some I'm not saying there's some transcendent inevitability.
Well, just real quick, Communist Manifesto, all history is a history of class struggle, hitherto. But here's the important thing. Either the revolutionary class has won, or there's been mutual ruination of them both.
No, I know. I've read the manifesto, but go ahead.
I was just saying, I wasn't terribly clear with my question. Basically, it boils down to this. My perception is that you think that nonviolence inevitably will work, but the underpinnings for that is basically some theological underpinning of radical transformation of humanity.
Not humanity as such, but human beings.
Okay. So, I mean, like...
No, so yes, you might have, for example, a Christian view that human beings can be radically transformed, and that would play into or be a factor of, you know, or part of one's idea that things can be better, things can change.
Would you say then that that's the big difference between the sort of secular material versus the theological transformative?
Well, I don't know if that's the big difference. I think maybe the big difference is if you're a secularist, then ultimately you have nothing to rely on but yourself, you know, but us. I don't mean oneself individually, but I mean all we have is us. You know, we're going to make it happen or we're not. And that has, you know, that doesn't seem like a very that's a pretty, as Kant said, weak reed upon which to lean, frankly. But if you're if you have a theological eschatology and teleology and theology of certain kinds, then, you know, the future isn't in our hands. And thank God, right, literally, that it isn't, right? And I think that's the fundamental difference. I think that's the fundamental difference. Okay, all I was trying to say earlier is, and I think Marxists, again, are like this, we want to be on the winning side. Who wants to be on the losing side? Raise your hand.
If the losing side is socialism.
But we all want socialism to win, and we want to be on that side.
Right, but I mean, this is a distinction. I think good Marxists recognize capitalism can win. And given how the last 50 years have gone, it's winning. And if it wins, we all die. Like, vulgar Marxists...
I didn't mean to say that Marx thought socialism can't fail. I didn't mean to say that.
I mean, you want socialism to win.
Well, he clearly wrote as though it will. He thinks it will. He didn't say it's inevitable that it will. It can't not lose. He never wrote that. But he clearly wrote that he thinks it's going to prevail.
It's just different.
Okay. Thanks for having me.